Welcome to The Bottom Line Up Front, the podcast that cuts through the noise to deliver distilled insights from today's most important technical webinars, presentations, and demonstrations. Designed for federal and military IT leaders, each episode breaks down complex technologies into mission-ready takeaways so you get the key points fast. Whether it's cybersecurity, cloud architecture, or emerging defense technologies, we highlight what matters most and how trusted integrators like ATP Gov can help implement and operationalize these solutions across your agency or command. No fluff, no filler, just the bottom line up front. We're going to talk about the part of zero trust that keeps commanders in the fight. That's microsegmentation across operational technology, the Internet of Things, and hybrid IT. So we're going to break down ColorTokens X-Shield and why it matters for federal and DoD missions.
We realize that you're going to be breached. Some people will admit it. Some people will shake their head. Yes, we know we're breached. We know what's going on, blah, blah, blah. The question really comes down to, are you breach ready? How do I mitigate that issue that I'm already breached? How do I look into that visibility and know who's been impacted? How do I go into that visibility and also quarantine that information dynamically? Speed is obviously of essence when you're talking about mitigating a breach.
Let's make sure we reframe our current understanding of zero trust. I want to emphasize that zero trust is an architecture and not a product. So what is ColorTokens X-Shield? X-Shield focuses on the network and device application pillars within Zero Trust with micro-segmentation containing east-west movement, reducing attack surface, and ring-fencing strategic assets. It covers traditional IT, OT and SCADA, IoT, and even legacy systems and weapon systems. The goal? Resilience, when, not if, a breach occurs.
It's that network resilience, right? It's, bridging the gap between the critical infrastructure pieces of IT, OT, and IoT, right? All the things that impact that mission. When we talk about that mission, we're talking everything from communication, C2 communication from, the Pentagon, through satellite communications, through weapons, through systems, through ships, aircraft, and so forth. All these things impact. It's not just the IT related stuff. Everything from a network is impacted from OT and IoT requirements and devices. So it's that sensor to shooter kill chain.
So I want you to think R&D, OT lines, finance, shipboard subsystems, and applying surgical policies that don't cripple operations. So how does it all work? X-Shield's management plane runs Kubernetes native SaaS by default. It can be run privately, in sovereign Azure, on-prem, or air-gapped. And enforcement paths are flexible. It can be agent-based for modern Windows, Linux, and Mac OS systems, plus it has support for Debian, AIX, Solaris, and other operating systems.
And this is either a small physical device, physical server, or a virtual appliance that can be deployed into the network to offer microsegmentation capability to those OT or non-traditional IT devices.
It uses what they call an agentless gatekeeper for OT and legacy systems where you can't install agents. So think of it as a security router in front of protected devices. ColorTokens can also piggyback on EDRs like CrowdStrike, Defender, and SentinelOne to reuse telemetry and enforcement. It also has cloud-native controls, for example, AWS security groups, which are on the roadmap to enforce segmentation with cloud primitives.
And then we have a very open API. Basically, anything you can do through this portal that I'm showing you, web-based, calling our own API, we make that API available to you. And so you can basically do things like enable a policy, deactivate a policy. So what a lot of customers will do, they'll create ring fence or quarantine policies as part of your breach response playbook. You can activate the appropriate policy, and then those protections will immediately go into effect.
For federal listeners, X-Shield's SaaS deployment is pursuing FedRAMP moderate status with US-based development and support.
From a deployment standpoint, we're very flexible. We can go into pretty much any environment that may exist, and we can operate there. Or if they don't want the management burden, they can use our SaaS cloud. And just a quick note, we are currently undergoing our FedRAMP moderate. We expect to be FedRAMP moderate by the end of the year. So we are able to operate our SaaS cloud at a very high compliance level.
For Azure Government and Sovereign Clouds, the management plane can run in region with ExpressRoute and VPN linking to on-prem gatekeepers and agents. If you're source-centric, X-Shield exposes an open API, and your playbooks can activate quarantine policies, shrink blast radiuses, or flip to audit-only modes without hopping onto another console. So let's talk about a real-world mission scenario. Think about a warship. It's coming back into dock, and it touches the port's OT ecosystem. That could be power, cranes, comms. And if adversaries can gain access to those systems, they'll be able to pivot through public utility interdependencies and, in effect, take over parts of the ship. So how would we integrate color tokens into this particular scenario? In practice, we would use micro-segmented zones on the ship to limit lateral spread, and thereby putting a digital ring fence around propulsion, navigation, and C2 subsystems. We'd implement audit-only policies for monitored boundaries and block for critical ones. And then we'd execute quarantine playbooks triggered by anomaly detection using your favorite sim to contain the threat at the zone level, not at blanket shutdown. The net effect? Stay in the fight, maintain C2 continuity, and buy time for remediation.
How much time do we have? Because we know we're connected to public utilities, and that's a very key piece to their success in a mission, is how do we protect them? And if something is interrupted from a cyber perspective, and we know they're out there, right? Salt Typhoon and everything else, they're out on the OT networks. How long do we have to stay in the fight? Is it a week, maybe 2 weeks? How do we protect these environments so we continue the fight, right? So that's that sustaining fight through network resilience.
But civilian agencies aren't alone, and they face similar exposure through IoT devices. Think biomedical devices in VA facilities, AV Crestron endpoints, and other smart building controls. These are often, quote, appliances on the enterprise network. And so microsegmentation reduces the blast radius when an MRI firmware bug or a conference room codec becomes the initial foothold.
One microsegmentation or one zero trust platform across all of the different types of infrastructure that they may have. So you only have to learn one tool, but you can protect all your assets regardless of what they are.
So how would we integrate color tokens into these scenarios? Well, first, we'd assess the hybrid environments. We'd create OT line diagrams, we'd do IoT inventories, and we'd look at EDR and SIM posture. From there, you want to design segmentation zones mapped to mission threads and zero trust pillars, aligning to both the MITRE's zero trust for resilience and the OTCC for guidance. Next, we'd implement ColorTokens X-Shield, and we'd deploy agents where appropriate, gatekeepers were required, and also include the EDR, SIM, and SOAR integrations into the platform. From there, we'd operationalize the playbooks. We'd look at breach containment, audit-only boundaries, and the goal is to reduce the attack surface without a big bang disruption. At that point, if you cleared all the delivery patterns for your sovereign cloud or other deployment options, once the system is up and running, then we can begin to track metrics like breach impact score, blast radius, and attack surface tracked over a 90-day hardening cycle. If you've been doing your research into this particular segment of zero trust, you've probably heard names like Illumio and Akamai Guardicore in this particular space. So you're probably wondering, how does X-Shield differentiate itself from its competitors?
In terms of competition, in microsegmentation, the pure play people are Illumio, Guardicore, who's now owned by Akamai, and ourselves. Generally don't see Guardicore too much in the federal or DoD space. Illumio, we do encounter. We have a couple of key differentiators from Illumio. One is our progressive microsegmentation approach. We do not force a particular workflow onto the customer. And then also our support for OT and the coverage of the platform.
It sets itself apart from the rest of the field with OT coverage, agentless gatekeeper, and a progressive policy approach, which allows you to build zones, validate traffic, and enforce with confidence. For DevSecOps teams and software factories, the Kubernetes integration and service mesh telemetry support modern pipelines without forcing a single workflow. So what's the bottom line up front of ColorTokens X-Shield? What we're really getting at is microsegmentation is the resilience lever for zero trust in federal and military environments. But zero trust microsegmentation isn't a silver bullet. It's a critical pillar for the DoD zero trust roadmap, especially across hybrid IT, OT, IoT, and weapon systems. ColorTokens X-Shield provides progressive, zone-based microsegmentation, breach containment, and attack surface reduction with agentless gatekeeper and EDR integrations like CrowdStrike, Defender, and SentinelOne. It has deployment flexibility, comes in SaaS, with FedRAMP moderate underway, private cloud, air-gapped, and on-prem Kubernetes native architecture. It has Azure alignment, and is API first for SOAR playbooks. It supports sensor-to-shooter continuity and network resilience when OT and IoT assets and public utility interdependencies are targeted. So if you want help mapping your enterprise to mission threads and integrating X-Shield with your existing stack, ATP Gov can help you design, integrate, and operationalize X-Shield across federal OT and IT, align it to the MITRE Zero Trust and emerging OTCC guidance, and orchestrate playbook-driven containment via existing SIM and source stacks. And by all means, send us your toughest segmentation challenges, and we look forward to covering those in a future episode. Be sure to reach out to ATP Gov today at www.atpgov.com or email info@atpgov.com, or check us out on social media on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to The Bottom Line up front wherever you get your podcasts, and stay tuned for more distilled insights from the front lines of tech and national security. So until next time, stay secure, stay mission ready.